Hi, welcome back. My name is Felicia. I'm a knitter, crocheter, and overall fiber enthusiast living in Washington, D.C. And this is my little corner of the internet where I have been sharing my journey to becoming a more prolific knitter. So, this is actually a special episode. It's not a traditional podcast episode. I'm going to be sharing my experience at the 2022 Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. If you want to see a more traditional podcast episode where I share my works in progress, my recently finished objects, and just discuss more in depth any sort of knitting relating content, I will link my last two episodes of the podcast below and in the cards. So if you want to check that out, you can go and see that. But everything that I'm going to discuss in this video today is going to be specifically around the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. I have a lot to share and I have a lot to discuss, so I'm going to go ahead and get started, and hopefully this video will not be too long, but I have a lot to share. I have a lot of fun things, so I'm really excited. So this past weekend was Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. It was actually my very first time attending a festival, Sheep and Wool Festival, anything like that. I've never been to Rhinebeck or anything like that, so I didn't really know what to expect. So I actually appreciate everyone who left like tips or sent me messages on Instagram about what to expect for Maryland Sheep and Wool. It was so helpful, and I utilized a lot of those tips in order to have kind of the best experience possible. There are still things that I would do differently, and I'll talk about that, but it was a really, really good experience. So I did not realize that there were going to be events kind of surrounding sheep and wool, kind of in the same way that there are events that surround Rhinebeck. So I saw that there were actually two events that were going on Friday that I wanted to attend. One of them, I guess technically three events. One of them was during the day, so I couldn't go to it because I had to work. And then there was a pop-up shop at the Knot House, and then there was the Magpie flagship store grand opening. So I drove to Frederick after work on Friday. It was a little over an hour drive. It was cold, it was raining. It was like the perfect day to be in a yarn shop and to go yarn shopping because I just wanted to be surrounded by like comfort and woolly goodness and all of those things. So I'm gonna go in order of where I stopped and shopped and bought things, and just share a little bit about each of those places. So the first place that I went to was the Knot House. I went there because Shayla of Black Pearl Magic was having a pop-up where she was going to be selling her bags, and I have wanted to buy one of her bags for a very, very long time. But they are very, very difficult to get for good reason because they're so amazing. So every time she has a shop update, I like always miss the mark. So I was so excited to go and meet Shayla, meet her husband, and be able to purchase a bag. So I went to the Knot House. It is a beautiful, beautiful yarn shop. If you are anywhere near or around Frederick, Maryland, and you can go to the Knot House, it's so beautiful. I'm realizing that I really enjoy visiting other like yarn shops because they are so different from my local yarn shop. So I usually go to Looped Yarn Works in Washington, D.C. Sometimes I'll go to the Fiber Space in Arlington, or is it Alexandria? I always get them confused, but I think it's Alexandria. So I will go to those two. And even between those two yarn shops, there's such a vast difference in terms of the yarns that they carry, the color palettes, the notions, everything is so different. And I really love that. So being able to go to another like local yarn shop and see the brands that they carry, be able to touch yarns that my local yarn shop doesn't normally carry. And, it was wonderful. It was really, really wonderful. And I got to meet the owners of the Knot House, and they were really lovely and wonderful. I got to talk to Shayla from Black Pearl Magic and pick out a bag. So I'm going to show you the bag that I got. How fun is this bag, right? Okay, so it's like, I don't know if it's picking up on camera, but it's like highlighter yellow green. It's like a neon green. And then it's not going to show. There we go. The zipper is like holographic. And then it has this blue, at the ends. This bag is so stunning. I'm obsessed with this bag. And I was talking to Shayla, and she was talking about how it's perfect for travel, like especially if you're going to go to the beach or the airport, or you're worried about things spilling on your knitting, which is brilliant. You can like disinfect it and like wipe it down because of the material. It was like born out of pandemic necessity. And so it's stunning and amazing. And the craftsmanship is, I mean, I would have paid double the price for this bag. Like, the craftsmanship is amazing. So she had the small, the medium, and the large size. I went with the medium size because I have a lot of larger project bags, but I definitely want to get a small one and I want to get a large one. And like as big as she'll make them, like a tote, whatever. I want them all. And so this was like the main reason that I drove to Frederick. It was so worth the drive. But when I got there, there was also a pop-up shop for Chelsea Luxe yarns. And I've seen a lot of people talk about Chelsea Luxe yarns, and I've looked at the colorways several times before, but I've just like never purchased anything, not for any particular reason other than that I've just never purchased it. So I was looking around and I saw a colorway that just, it like stuck in my mind. I typically, when I'm yarn shopping, I will like make a mental note about something, walk around, look at other things. And if I keep being like drawn back to whatever it was that I was looking at, then I will go ahead and purchase it. I try not to just like purchase things out of impulse, even though everything I bought this weekend was an impulse. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt. But anyway, I saw this yarn. It was in such a unique composition. I've never seen anything like it before. I love the color. It's like in one of my favorite color combinations. And so I had to buy it. There were only 2 skeins of it. So it's going to be a challenge to figure out what to use it for. But I picked up the Luxie Cobblestone in the, it's called Lavender Latte colorway. So it's this really, okay, that's accurate. It's this really pretty soft lavender color. And then it's got like nubby yarn, and some of the nubs in the yarn are this really pretty, like warm, I'm not picking it up, there we go. Really pretty, it's kind of blowing out, sorry, there it is. A really pretty warm brown color. It's so beautiful. It's a silk mohair blend. Nope. Okay, so the cobblestone is, wait, I think this is 2 skeins of yarn. Hold on. Oh my gosh, wow, okay. I feel like such a goober. Okay, it's 2 different skeins of yarn. There is Mohair, which is, there's a Luxie Mohair, which is a 72% mohair, 28% silk. And then there's the Luxie Cobblestone, which is 90% superwash merino, 10% nylon. And there's about 450 yards of each. And they're skeined up together. That makes this an even better value because I think these skeins were only, they were like the price of a regular skein of yarn. I did not realize that it was 2 skeins of yarn until I was reading the label. So that was my goober moment of the day. And now I don't have it skeined as pretty as it was when I picked it up. But anyway, I picked up 2 skeins, I guess 4, but I picked up 2 of these skeins, and I'm thinking of making like a pretty simple construction, like yoke construction, short sleeve top. I think that'll be really pretty and fun for spring. I think the slutty yarn plus the mohair is going to be really fun to knit up. And now that I know that it's actually 2 different skeins of yarn, it's going to be, because I thought it was only 460 yards of this combined, which I don't know how I got there, but I did. Anyway, now that I know that I have a little over 900 yards of the mohair and almost 900 yards of the slubby yarn, I think I'll be able to find a really cute T pattern to make with this. So these were the 2 things that I picked up at the Knot House. And about a quarter of a mile away from the Knot House is the Magpie Fiber flagship store. So I wanted to go on Friday specifically because I was hoping that I could meet Adela from Lola Beyonko and Gigi of Gigi Made It. But unfortunately, Gigi did not come until Saturday and Adela was gone by the time I got there. That did not stop me from having a rip-roaring time inside of the Magpie shop. Again, it's a beautiful, beautiful yarn shop. It's so beautifully curated. It was very different than what I expected it to be in all of the best ways. So I knew that it would be carrying Magpie fibers, but they carry so many other yarns and notions and bags and pins, and there's even like a little haberdashery in the back where you can find sewing notions and fabric and buttons. And then in the back of the store, there's a vault where there's a ton of like spin cycle yarn. So I went into Magpie and I did a lot of damage, like a lot of damage. But I left everything in the bag because I wanted you to see how beautiful the packaging is. So this is the bag from Magpie. It's so gorgeous. The like rose gold foiling on the bag. The aesthetic of the store is beautiful, very, very beautiful. And I spent probably an hour to an hour and a half in the store. The staff was so friendly, so helpful. I actually had staff, a couple of people helped me pick out a few yarns, and it was just really, really like lovely. It was really, really nice. When I went in there, Andrea Mowry was in there, just kind of like hanging out with people, and I didn't get a chance to speak to her because she was kind of talking to a bunch of different people, and then every time I would kind of like think to go to wherever she was, I would get distracted by yarn. So I didn't get a chance to like go up to her and meet her, but she seemed really lovely in person. But I bought a ton of yarn. So I'm going to get into what I got, and I'm just going in order of how it is in the bag because I don't want to rummage around. So this is actually one of the first things that I picked up is this Mohair. This is a 70/30 Mohair. It's on their feather base, and it's called Crazy for You. And it is just like, I don't know. I saw it and I felt it was giving me like 90s nostalgia. I needed it. These are not my colors at all. Like, this is not my color palette at all, but I could not leave it. Like, I had to have it. So I did pick up a sweater's quantity of this. It's 470 yards per 50 grams. It's beautiful. The color is so beautiful. And I think that what like struck me the most about it is it's such a to me, it's not a very Magpie Fibers colorway. Like when I think about Magpie, sorry, my neighbors are making noise as per usual. When I think about Magpie, I think about beautiful tonals, and even their speckled colors are kind of muted and neutral and subdued in this very like classic sort of way. And so when I saw this, I was like, this is such, to me, I just thought about something else I picked up at Knot House, but I'll go back to it. Anyway, this is so like not a Magpie to me colorway, but when I saw it, it was so beautiful. And they had it in a basket with yarns that are like these colors. So it was like a beautiful purple color, a nice like, not sage, but almost a sagey green, this beautiful like sherbet orange color. So they had it like perfectly marketed. And I picked this up and I was like, I need it. So I picked up a sweater's quantity of this. I could have gotten away with one skein, but there were 3 skeins sitting there and it just felt like the right thing to do. So I picked up that. I want to go back to the Knot House because I'm going to be losing yarn all day. But I picked up a skein of this Fashion School Dropout, and that is so blown out, in the colorway Yarnable. Here it goes. It's this beautiful like baby blue and yellow and kind of pink, looks like striping base with wonderful, wonderful speckles. And this was an exclusive colorway for Black Pearl Magic for Shayla. So I wanted to support, and so I picked up a skein of this. It is 75/25. About 460 yards. I don't know that I'll make socks with this. This might end up in a shawl or something fun. I think it'll be a really fun, I might even make a bralette out of it. I don't know. I want to get closer, but it's so like bright that it blows out. But it's just a really fun it reminds me of like ice cream and sherbet and cupcakes and sprinkles and all of that. And it's so, so beautiful. I've never bought yarn from Fashion School Dropout, but I watch Twin Aura Knits, their podcast, and they talk about this yarn dyer all the time. So when I saw it, I was like, I'm going to pick it up because it's a new to me dyer, and it was a beautiful, beautiful skein. So I picked up a skein of that. Back to Magpie. Okay, so the next thing that I have to show is there is a ton of Spin Cycle at the Magpie shop. I think they probably have every color of Spin Cycle. And I've purchased Spin Cycle online, but I do find that I prefer to pick it up in stores because part of the appeal of Spin Cycle yarn is that every skein is so uniquely different, and even the colorways are so different. They can read more warm or more brown or more red or more orange or more green or more blue, depending on the particular skein of that colorway that you get. So I was really excited when I saw all of the colors of Spin Cycle, and Spin Cycle is hypnotizing. It just like draws you in, and you're like picking up skeins before you know it. And I picked up these skeins with no particular project in mind. I actually have quite a few skeins of Spin Cycle yarn. And so I just picked up these skeins because I like them and I know that I will use them eventually, probably for something that's color work related. And so I was just like picking them up. And when I got to the register, the young lady who was checking me out was like, are you going to put those in a project together? Because they need to be in a project together. And I literally did not pick them out to go together, but they do kind of all work together. So I don't know, maybe there'll be some sort of Spin Cycle, maybe there'll be some sort of Spin Cycle fade. Sorry, it's coming undone. And I've already completely messed up somebody's beautiful skein job on another yarn, so I don't want to do it again. Okay, so here they go. There we go. These are the 3 skeins that I picked up. I'll go through them one by one. So this skein is called Midsummer. And it reminded me, I mean, I kind of have a thing going on right now, if you can see where I'm at right now, color-wise. But it just reminded me of spring. And it was so cold and so dreary outside. I was like, I want spring. And it's so beautiful. And I loved the purple and the pink in it. Even though I'm not a huge fan of pink, I just loved how these colors work together. And it reminded me of the Fashion School Dropout yarn. Like, it was just, this was like the vibe that I was on when I was there that day. So there's Midsummer. And then this is Nostalgia. And it's this really pretty deep purple with kind of blues and lighter purples and reds kind of mixed in. And I love this. Love this. And then this is Good Omen. And these are my kind of purples. I like cooler purples. And it's kind of blue and purple and pink and red. It's really, really pretty. So I picked up those. And then I saw that they had a colorway, well, 2 colorways actually, that were inspired by Gigi of Gigi Made It, and I had to buy them. And I mentioned this a while ago on a different, like an actual podcast episode, that I wanted to like knit the rainbow more and be more inspired by color. And I've been looking at all of the different oranges that Gigi has collaborated on. I still want the one from Bien Aimee because I love Bien Aimee. But I saw this one and I literally could not pass it up. I couldn't pass it up. It's called Iconic Orange Lady. There was another one that was called # Stand in the Gap. I think that was the name of it. It was a little bit more primary orange to me. It looked just like an orange crayon, and that wasn't really like the color that I was kind of going for, but this is a little bit of a warmer orange. And yeah, it's a little bit more of a warmer orange. And I really liked that, and I felt like that color would look really good on me. I picked up 3 skeins, which should be enough for a sweater for me. There were 4 skeins, but then I walked away and then somebody else picked it up. So you live and you learn. But this is on the Swanky sock base from Magpie, which I love, which is an 80-10-10. Oh, it's 80% superwash merino, 10% nylon, 10% cashmere. So this will eventually become a really beautiful sweater. I think I might try to do something maybe a little textured with it. We'll see if I have the yardage for that. If not, I think it would make a really beautiful, just like raglan style, comfortable, like sweater style. But I love this color and I think it's going to be stunning on me. So picked up that. And then I saw this base. I've never seen this base in person. I remember when Magpie released the base, and then I saw it in this color and I was like, yes, I want it. And I don't remember who was helping me out, but she was a really, really like sweet, lovely sales associate, and she was helping me pick out colors. And she was like, oh, you should feel this when it's knit up. And there was a shawl, like a lacy shawl pattern. It looked like it was probably a one skein project. I didn't catch the name of it, but I felt it after it had been washed and blocked. And I was like, immediately, yes, I'm sold. So I looked up the yardage for just like a simple T pattern and picked up enough yardage for that. So this is the Equinox Sport. It is 60% silk and 40% linen. And it is in the colorway Bougie Beaver. It is, that's the color. It is a kind of rose gold, pinky bronze type color. This is the type of pink that I can get behind. I don't like millennial pink or baby pink, or I do like neon pink, but I really like this kind of like rose gold, almost gilded colorway. And I think it's going to look really pretty against my skin tone. And so I picked up enough to make, I think the pattern that we looked at was like the Ripped Tee by Jacqueline Cieslak, and I think it's enough for that. So that's what I picked up from Magpie. I also pre-ordered the Black Beaver colorway from Lola Beyonko. I had picked up a bunch of skeins of the sport weight, and then I decided that I don't mind sport weight, but I prefer fingering weight. So I decided to go with the fingering weight instead, but they didn't have any in stock. So it was going to have to be a pre-order. So I just pre-ordered it. And so it'll be a nice, fun surprise in the mail at some point in the future. I love pre-ordering yarn. I know it annoys some people, but I personally love pre-ordering yarn. So there will be a sweater's quantity of the Black Beaver coming. It's a really beautiful color. I will link to the post that Adela did for the color so you can see the colorway, but it's so pretty. And yeah, I love Adela. I love Lola Beyonko. So I picked some up while I was there. Why not? So that was Friday night. And Saturday was the first day of the festival. I was not able to go on Saturday because I had some prior obligations. And so I missed like all of the people being at Maryland Sheep and Wool. It turned out to be a cold, rainy, muddy, nasty, disgusting day on Saturday. And so while I have a tremendous amount of FOMO, because there were so many people that I wanted to see or meet in person, and I didn't get the opportunity to do that because they were only there on Saturday. The way that my immune system is set up and the way that like my circulation is set up, that was not the environment for me to be in personally. So while I had FOMO, I am actually okay with the fact that I didn't go on Saturday. So I ended up going on Sunday, and it was pretty chill, I think. It was about a 45-minute drive from DC, at least the part of DC that I live in. And it was a pretty easy drive. The traffic getting to the fairgrounds was not that bad. There were people directing traffic and, you know, kind of putting you into parking. I drive a Honda. And so it was a little perilous in the parking situation, but it turned out to be fine. I parked in the grass. I got out. It was fine. I think I heard about a lot of stories of people getting like stuck in the mud on Saturday, and the way that Murphy's Law is set up, that would have been me. So again, another reason I'm glad that I didn't go. But I did take the advice of several people who reached out to me, and I packed boots, like rain boots. And I'm so glad that I did because it was muddy. It was so muddy and so wet and so damp. But it was the perfect day to go feel yarns, touch yarns, do all of that because it was so cold. And I think if it had been hot, I would have had like more of a wool aversion. And there weren't that many vendors, at least that I saw, that were selling non-wool yarns, which is fine. I mean, it's called Sheep and Wool Festival, but I would have thought that there would be more like linen and flax and those kinds of yarns. I didn't really see those. There were some, but they didn't stand out to me as something that I felt like I have to purchase this today. So the festival was a lot bigger than I anticipated, even with people telling me that it was going to be a pretty large festival. It was still bigger than I anticipated. I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but it was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. And so the advice that I got, that I utilized, was to start in the back and then work your way towards the entrance exit area. And so that's what I did. I sort of walked in a loop around the festival, and there were like these outdoor, what did they call them? They weren't tents. They were... they were barns. So they had these different barns, and I sort of like, you know, zigzagged through those. And then I went to the main exhibition area, and then came out and went like kind of on a loop around the outer ring. And I actually ended up doing that twice, and I think that was a good idea. So the first time I did it, I just like walked around trying to get my bearings, figure out what was what. And there is sort of this like sense of urgency when you go to these shows of like, oh, this skein that I like is going to be sold out, or they're not going to have this color that I want, or, you know, I have to get it when I first see it. And after the damage that I did on Friday, I was really trying to be a little bit more intentional about the yarns that I picked up and what I purchased. And I saw a ton of yarn that I wanted and made notes of a lot of the vendors that I want to go back and eventually purchase from. But I tried to just pick up yarns that were really special and would remind me of Maryland sheep and wool specifically. And so I didn't pick up, I had already purchased, gosh, 3 sweaters quantity of yarn on Friday. So I was like, I don't need another sweaters quantity. I'm okay buying single skeins. I'm not really a person who buys a ton of single skeins of yarn. But for this, I was like, I'm okay picking up a single skein. That way I can kind of spread out my support among a bunch of different vendors. So I went to Miss Babs Yarn. I ended up not purchasing anything from Miss Babs because I can access it fairly easily here in DC. Fiberspace is a retailer of Miss Babs. And so I was trying to pick up yarns that I can't easily access in DC. But the booth was beautiful. They have those, like, I don't know what they call them, but they're like those huge skeins of yarn. I think they have like 1,700 yards in them. They're massive. And there were some really beautiful colors. But again, nothing really stood out to me. I think in part because I had been buying these really like bright, poppy kind of colors, that the neutrals that I'm usually attracted to just weren't calling out to me in the same way. They just like weren't speaking to me. So there were some beautiful yarns, beautiful samples. The booth was not nearly as crazy as I thought it would be. I thought there would be like a line, you know, all the way around. It wasn't that bad. So, but I did get a chance to stop and look at Miss Babs, and it's beautiful. Another yarn that I looked at, but I didn't purchase anything from, was O Wool. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. It's an organic wool company. They had a beautiful palette. Again, really soft neutrals. They're creams and tans, and they're like pinky type of color, beigey pinky type of colors are beautiful. But again, I don't know, I'm just in a brights and colorful kind of place, maybe because I wanted to be spring, maybe because of the other yarns that I had already picked up, but nothing that they had there really spoke to me. But the yarns are really beautiful, and I do think it's a yarn that I will eventually purchase. And after that, I stopped in the Loop Fiber Studio booth, and I had heard about Loop Studio, but I'd never seen their yarns in person. And they do these yarns, they're called yin yang yarns. So it'll be a yarn that's, for example, they'll have one that's like a marl. So I'm doing a bad job describing this. it's a marled yarn, and there will be two different marls, and the marls will be opposites. So you'll, for example, they had one that was a pink and red, and the pink on one of them was like the main color or the predominant color, and then on the other one, same pink, same red, the red was the predominant color. And so the yarns were really, really beautiful. And those, again, nothing was really standing out to me, but I noticed in a corner that they had some mill ends, and I saw this mill end. This is fingering weight, superfine merino, 100 grams, 400 yards. And I saw this, and it actually matches my shirt. It is so beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the colors that are of my Magnolia Bloom. And it was just like this warm, I don't know, oatmeal-y, fun kind of color. And I thought it would be perfect in either like a beige or cream, and do color work with this yarn. So this is leftover singles from the production of the Yin Yang colorways, and they're just randomly plied. So this was the only skein like this. There is not another skein like this. And as somebody who likes things that are unique, I appreciated that this was like a one-of-a-kind colorway. And you get the same yardage, and it was actually a little bit less expensive. So it'll give me a chance to kind of experiment with this yarn and see if I want to purchase it for other projects. But I thought this was really beautiful, and I think it's going to be stunning for color work. So after that, I went to the Neighborhood Fiber Company tent. They were in a tent, and that was beautiful. Their whole setup was beautiful. I think they had all of their bases, probably every single colorway. The amount of, like, it was gorgeous. They had samples, and I have a ton of Neighborhood Fiber Company colorways. I probably have like 3 or 4 sweaters quantities that I have not used yet. And so I didn't really want a sweaters quantity. So I just picked up 2 things. First, I picked up the Maryland Sheep and Wool exclusive colorway. It's called Sherwood Gardens. And again, it's like these sherbet cotton candy fun summer colors that I just cannot get enough of. I cannot get enough of these. And this is on their rustic fingering base. This is 100% organic merino, and it's a singles base. They do have like a studio sock base, but for some reason I don't think they had this colorway on that when I got there. Or maybe I didn't look, I don't know. But I just picked up the single ply fingering, and honestly, when I saw this, I was like, this can go into color work for something. It can be part of a shawl or something like that. I just wanted it because it was pretty. I have no use for it, no planned uses for it at all, but I wanted it, so I picked it up. And the same goes for this colorway, which is also on the rustic fingering. This is the 1 First Street Northeast colorway. This is the Katanji Brown Jackson inspired colorway. And so I saw this, and she had posted on Instagram that she was making this colorway, and I was going to order it then, but then she said that she would have it at Maryland Sheep and Wool. And I'm glad that I went and picked it up in person, because some of the skeins of this colorway, it's kind of a blue that's really good. It's like a blue, dark blue, and then it's got some black in it. And some of the skeins were a little bit more black than they were blue, and so I was able to kind of fish through and pick up a more blue skein of this colorway. So I don't know what this is going to become, but I have all of the other inspired colorways from Neighborhood Fiber Company, and I would love if I could figure out a way to put them all in one project. The colors don't really go together that well, but maybe. I have the one that's inspired by Stacey Abrams, by Vice President Kamala Harris, and by former First Lady Michelle Obama. So but they're all so different, but I would love to put them into one project. So maybe I'll figure out like a shawl or something that I can use them all in. But I picked up that. And then I went to a bunch of other booths, oh gosh, I probably picked up and put down probably 50 skeins of yarn. And there were some that I said, okay, I can, they weren't local, or they were ones that I know that they have at other festivals or other events. So I saw like Barrett Wool Co. and Green Mountain Spinnery, and they had beautiful yarns, beautiful like tactile yarns. And in my last episode, when I talked about wanting to go to Maryland Sheep and Wool, I was really like, I want to pick up, you know, some tactile, more rustic, you know, sheepy, woolly, farmy yarns. And then I picked up none of those things. And honestly, it was because I could not decide. I almost picked up 2 different cones twice during my loop, and I loved the color of those cones. Like, I loved the color of those cones, but I don't know, I just like I couldn't do it. I just couldn't, I couldn't check out with them. And I'm kind of regretting it a little bit because a couple of those cones are really, really beautiful. And so if I do make it up to Rhinebeck, or to New York Sheep and Wool in Rhinebeck, I will definitely be looking for those yarns. But I just sort of felt like I had purchased 4 sweaters quantities of yarn already at these other events, and I didn't want another like big cone, a big sweaters quantity of yarn kind of staring me in the face. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little bit of buyer's remorse, and I may like try to go online and order them. I know that seems like ridiculous to pay shipping on them, but there were 2 that I just really, really enjoyed. There were actually 3 cones that I really enjoyed. One was sort of like a cotton candy, very reminiscent of the color palette that I had been previously purchasing. And then there were 2 kind of purpley ones. One was a more red toned purple, very deep, almost plummy color. And then there was one that was a little bit more of a cool tone. It almost came up blue, but my eye was picking it up as being like a purpley blue color. I don't know, I couldn't decide, and I wanted both, and I was like, I can't justify buying both of them, so I bought neither, is kind of what that came down to. I get easily overwhelmed if I have too many options, and that was one of those cases where like there was so much yarn, and I was like buying things and seeing things that I loved, and I was like, I could one skein myself into like $1,000 worth of yarn easily just at this festival, like one skein myself that like very quickly, and I didn't want to do that. So, but I'm a sucker for a good purple yarn. I am a sucker for a good purple yarn, and I went into this tent probably twice because I saw this skein of yarn and I left it, walked around, came back, and I was like, no, I really do want it. So the dyer is at Haynes House Yarns. It is local to me. I believe that she's based out of Virginia. No, Maryland. I believe she's based out of Maryland. And this color is called Patch Test. It's a 100% superwash merino. And there it is. It's so pretty. I love a purple. I love purple yarn. I do. I love purple. Purple is my favorite color. I don't knit with it nearly enough, but I am going to start trying to do better with that. Anyway, what I loved about this yarn, not only were the colorways gorgeous, there were several gorgeous colorways. One was called, I almost picked it up. It was like Electric Cha-Cha Slide or something. It was really pretty. But what I love about this are not only the names, but, and I'm going to try to see if I can, nope, it's going to blow out. Okay, you can't see it. But on each label, there's this little description of why the name is what it is. So for Patch Test, it says, if you've ever been tested for allergies, which I have been, you know the pain of a patch test. This colorway is a representation of what Terry and Emmanuel's patch test looks like. So I thought this was really pretty. One, as somebody who has seasonal allergies and, you know, sensitivities, I thought that the name and the sort of inspiration was really great. But the color is also really pretty. There was another one that was like coffee and cream or something like that, and the description was talking about how Terry likes more cream in her coffee than coffee, and I just thought that was really cute. And I think that a lot of times there are these like fun colorways or you know, but you don't really get like the personality behind the dyer. And as I was like picking up each skein and reading a little bit of the colorway story, I felt like I was learning more and more and more about this dyer. And so I was really excited to pick up a skein and support not only a local but a Black owned yarn dyer. And it was, I don't know, it's just so pretty. So this will probably end up in a shawl or something. It doesn't have any merino, and I don't know that it has enough twist to be a sock yarn, but it could very easily be either color work in something or more likely end up in a shawl. But I thought this was really pretty. So that was all of the yarn that I picked up for Maryland Sheep and Wool. I think under the circumstances, I did pretty well. At least that's what I'm telling myself. But I did want to talk about just like the overall experience of Maryland Sheep and Wool and some of the things that I picked up. So I am not an outdoorsy person. I'm not like a nature kind of girl. And so, but this was like the perfect amount of outdoors for me, personally. I think that the weather was a little bit of an anomaly, but I appreciated that it was a little chilly, that it was a little overcast, because one, I was able to wear a little bit of knitwear, but also, again, it made like touching the yarn and feeling wool not feel too much. I don't know, like I just feel like I wanted to buy yarn because it was so cold outside. I think that the advice to sort of like start in the back and then work your way forward was great advice. It was a little hard to just like walk past vendors or walk past things and not peek in, but I figured out a way to do it sort of in the best way possible for me. Like I said, I did 2 loops around the festival, and that was probably in part because it wasn't that big, sort of space-wise, but it was a really good idea because there were a couple of things that I saw that I decided not to purchase, but there was this really beautiful like yarn bowl that I was going to purchase, but I decided against it because I just recently purchased the yarn bowl and I don't really need 2 of them. So I decided against purchasing that. But I think that like doing a second lap allowed me to I think doing a second lap allowed me to, one, kind of get my bearings about where things were, but also gave me time to like decide, where I did not feel super rushed about things. Like I said, I think at these festivals and events like this, there is this sense of like urgency and scarcity. Like if I don't buy this thing now, I'm not going to be able to purchase it. And that's partially true. But on the whole, I found that the vendors were very well stocked. They had extra skeins, with the exception of Loop, which I think had like all of their mill-in kind of yarns out. Most of the time, if you walked away and came back within 30 minutes, you were still going to be able to have access to those yarns or those colorways. And so I think doing a lap, kind of figuring out who all is here, what they have, right, allowed me to be a little bit more wise about my purchases and not just go like balls to the wall and buy every single thing that I saw that I liked and then run out of money like halfway through. So that was really good. I think next year, if I'm able to make it, what I'm going to do, and this is advice that I got, but I didn't take it because it seemed like a lot more work than what I had the mental capacity to do, if I'm being honest. But I think next time what I'll do is I'll map out, and I saw a woman actually, she had like a spreadsheet. She was very organized. This woman was extremely organized. But I think what I'll do next time is I will map out what vendors I definitely want to purchase from and try to visit those vendors first and then kind of go everywhere else. Outside of Neighborhood Fiber Company, there was nobody that I really wanted to see. I was just open to whatever yarns were going to be there. And like I said, the vision that I had for what I wanted to purchase when I went to Maryland Sheep and Wool versus what I actually purchased were 2 completely different things. I wanted to get farm, you know, very farmy, sheepy wool, and I didn't. I picked up, I think everything that I picked up only picked up 1 superwash wool at the actual festival, but I think just like being open to whatever vendors have and the different yarns. Another thing is that I wish that I had been more thoughtful about purchasing like non-yarn items. Like I said, I looked at and picked up actually 3 different times a yarn bowl. And I don't have any buyer's like remorse for not picking up the yarn bowl, but I kind of wish that I would have picked up like a basket or some soap or lotions or something like that. A candle, something, anything like that, like a homeware item. I just didn't see anything that I felt like I could not live without. And so that was part of the reason. I don't think it was, I don't think it was really for any other reason. So yeah. And the other thing that I'll do the next time is that I will probably bring my own bag. That I know that that seems like duh, but I didn't bring a bag, and it felt very weird like walking around with like this plastic bag filled with yarn. I don't know why, it just did. And I saw other people with like their bags and their linen totes, and I was like, duh, I could have just brought my own. I just didn't think to do that. I literally went into it with like no idea what I was doing. So I feel like I did pretty well to have not known what was really going to be happening or going on. Anyway, that is everything that I picked up from Maryland Sheep and Wool. That was my Maryland Sheep and Wool experience. I think it was really great. If I am able to, I do plan on attending again in the future, and I hope that there will be more of these sort of like pop-up indie yarn events, because I think that those were really fun and really great. And it was fun to sort of get the mix of indie dyed yarns, I think sort of more like nationally known or recognized or popular indie dyed yarns, and combining that with local up and coming yarn dyers and, you know, farmers and shepherds and shepherdesses. And everybody at the festival was just so knowledgeable and so nice, and it was a ton of fun just like being able to go to all of these events. So I definitely plan on going again in the future and seeing sort of how it continues to grow, if it continues to grow, and if there are these other sort of outside events that continue to be affiliated with, or not affiliated with, but continue to be a part of the experience of Maryland Sheep and Wool. That's all I have. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see a little bit more of what I'm actually knitting on and more knitting content, like I said before, I will have my last 2 podcast episodes linked below. You can feel free to go check those out. If you enjoy the content, I hope that you will consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up so that other people can find my content. I'm also fairly active on Instagram. I'm at Phylena Knits on Instagram. I will have that linked below, as well as everything that I talked about today. I will also have a link. I will also have links to some yarn dyers who I thought had beautiful, beautiful yarns, but I just did not purchase them. Me not purchasing their yarns was not a statement of their yarn or the color or anything. Honestly, there was one yarn dyer that I almost bought. Like, I wanted to buy every single color of yarn, like every single one that they had. And there were so many choices, and I was cold and I was wet and I was hungry and I was overwhelmed. So I just said no, and I will probably be purchasing from them online, but I will have links to a bunch of different dyers, the ones that I purchased from, but also ones that I think that you should consider going and checking out and giving some business to if you can. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for giving me a little bit of your time. I am going to return with a regular podcast episode sooner rather than later. And in the meantime, I hope that you're staying safe and healthy and having a wonderful day. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.